The Galactic Celebration Database lists human traditions as the most universally. Part 1. Stared at her screen for the third time that morning. The numbers still made no sense. She was the senior archivist of the Interstellar Cultural Archive, and in her 200 years of service, she had never seen data like this. The archive was the biggest collection of cultural information in the known galaxy. Every species that joined the galactic community added their traditions, festivals, and celebrations to the database. 17,000 species contributed their history. The archive tracked everything from ancient religious ceremonies to modern social gatherings. It was job to organize it all and spot patterns. And she had found a pattern, a very strange pattern. Clicked through the reports again. Over the past 50 galactic standard years, the archive had recorded thousands of new celebrations across hundreds of worlds. That was normal. Species evolved, cultures changed, and new traditions appeared all the time. But these new traditions were different. They all looked familiar. They all seemed to come from the same place. She ran the analysis program one more time, certain it would show an error. The quantum processors hummed as they sorted through trillions of data points. They compared celebration elements, looked for connections, traced cultural exchanges, and mapped influence patterns across time and space. The results appeared on her screen. Four eyes widened in disbelief. 73% of all new celebration traditions in the past 50 years traced back to Earth. Earth, the humans, a species that had only joined the galactic community 60 years ago, a species that barely had faster-than-light travel when they first made contact, a species that controlled only one star system. It was impossible. Cultural influence took centuries, sometimes. They had shaped celebration culture across 12 sectors, but that took 4,000 years. The ancient preservers influenced thousands of species, but their civilization lasted 10,000 years before they vanished. Humans had been part of the galaxy for less than a human lifetime, yet their celebrations were everywhere. Pulled up specific examples. The collective of Andromeda Sector 7 had recently instituted something called Days of Gratefulness. They gathered in large groups, shared food with family and friends, and took turns expressing thanks for good things in their lives. The tradition started 15 years ago when a trading vessel stopped at Earth to refuel. The crew attended something humans called Thanksgiving. The crystalline, who lived most of their lives in solitary meditation, had begun gathering at the end of their solar cycle. They created light displays, made promises for self-improvement, and celebrated the transition from old to new. They called it Fresh Beginning Festival. Humans called it New Year's Eve. They started this tradition after a human mining crew shared their New Year celebration with a monastery. The warrior clans, known throughout the galaxy for their brutal efficiency and harsh culture, had changed their winter ceremonies. They now exchanged small tokens of appreciation with clan members during their darkest season. Children created wish lists. Families decorated their war halls with lights and greenery. They called it winter sharing. Humans called it Christmas. A general adopted the tradition after spending a military exchange year on Earth. Found hundreds more examples. Birthday celebrations spreading to hive species that never acknowledged individuals. Wedding ceremonies incorporating human elements like exchanged vows and celebration parties. Harvest festivals that looked like human autumn celebrations. Even the concept of surprise parties had reached 4 different sectors. She needed to understand this. Submitted a formal research proposal to the Cultural Council. Within 2 days, she had approval and funding. The council was just as confused as she was. They wanted answers. Assembled a team of 20 researchers from different species. She chose cultural anthropologists, sociologists, and celebration specialists. She gave them one mission: figure out why human celebrations were spreading across the galaxy like a virus. The team started with observation. They sent researchers to Earth, to every continent and major population center. The researchers were supposed to observe quietly, take notes, and report back. That proved harder than expected. Humans, it turned out, loved to include everyone in their celebrations. Within days, the research team found themselves invited to birthday parties, weddings, graduations, holidays, and neighborhood gatherings. The humans seemed confused when the researchers tried to decline. "But you're here," one human said to a researcher. "That means you're invited. Come on, we have plenty of food." The reports that came back to were unlike any cultural study she had ever read. Her researchers didn't just observe human celebrations, they experienced them. They ate strange food, they played weird games, they wore funny hats, they sang songs in languages they didn't know, they danced badly and laughed when they fell down. One researcher, a serious scholar who had published 47 academic papers, sent a video message instead of a written report. He was wearing a cone-shaped hat and standing in a room full of balloons. He said, struggling to look professional, "I have just attended my first human birthday party. I need to completely revise my understanding of celebration culture. Also, I ate something called cake. We need to get the recipe for this cake." As more reports came in, started to understand. Humans didn't just celebrate the big moments. They celebrated everything. They had holidays for their nations, for their religions, for historical events, for seasons, for saints, for foods, for occupations, for relationships. They celebrated things had never considered celebration-worthy. Humans celebrated being alive for another year. They celebrated finishing school. They celebrated new jobs and lost teeth and first words and last days of work. They celebrated love with anniversaries and Valentine's Day and date nights. They celebrated friendship with friend holidays and reunions and girls' nights and guys' weekends. They even celebrated sad things. When someone died, humans held funerals that became celebrations of that person's life. They shared stories, laughed at memories, and honored the dead by remembering the joy they brought. When relationships ended, some humans held divorce parties to mark new beginnings. When they failed at something, they acknowledged it with humor and moved forward. His team counted over 300 distinct celebration types across Earth's various cultures, and that was just the formal ones. Humans also threw parties just because. They gathered for no reason except that gathering seemed nice. They called it hanging out or getting together or having people over. The research team identified something else unusual. Human celebrations were designed to be shared. Most galactic species had exclusive celebrations, religious ceremonies for believers only, clan gatherings for clan members only, achievement celebrations for those who achieved, status celebrations for those with status. Humans invited everyone, friends, family, neighbors, strangers who looked lonely. The more the merrier, they said. Their celebrations expanded to include whoever showed up. They made extra food, pulled up extra chairs, and learned extra names. Being present was enough. Being human wasn't even required. The researcher reported from a human neighborhood gathering. "They call it a block party," she wrote. "They close an entire street. Every family brings food. Children run everywhere. Music plays from multiple sources. People who met 5 minutes ago talk like old friends. They invited me, a clearly non-human stranger taking notes, to join their volleyball game. When I explained I was researching their culture, they said, 'Great, research says you're on this team.' I am now the godmother of 2 human children. I'm not sure how this happened." Compiled all the reports and began her analysis. The picture became clearer. Human celebrations had 3 core elements that made them irresistible to other species. First, they created instant community. Humans used celebration to build and strengthen bonds. Every party, every holiday, every gathering was an opportunity to connect. For species struggling with isolation, loneliness, or rigid social structures, this was revolutionary. Second, they were radically inclusive. Any being could join, participate, and belong. In a galaxy where most species maintained strict social boundaries, human celebrations offered something rare: acceptance without requirements. Third, they were fun. Simple, pure, uncomplicated fun. Humans celebrated because it felt good. They didn't need religious justification or political purpose or cultural obligation. Joy itself was reason enough. Understood now why human celebrations were spreading. They weren't being imposed or enforced. They were being adopted enthusiastically because they filled needs that other species didn't know they had. The galaxy was learning something from humans that went beyond technology or science or military strength. The galaxy was learning how to party. Part 2. Spent 3 months reviewing every piece of data her research team collected. She read reports, watched videos, analyzed surveys, and conducted follow-up interviews. The more she learned about human celebrations, the more fascinated she became. Her team had identified 7 key elements that appeared in almost all human celebrations, regardless of culture or purpose. These 7 elements seemed to be the reason other species found human traditions so easy to adopt and so satisfying to experience. The first element was food. Humans always involved food in their celebrations. Always. They didn't just eat for nutrition during celebrations. They ate for pleasure, for tradition, for sharing. Food became a language of love and community. Every human culture had special celebration foods. They had recipes passed down through generations. They had dishes that appeared only during certain holidays. They had traditions about who cooked what, who brought what, who ate first, who got the biggest piece. But more importantly, humans shared their food. At every celebration, food was abundant and available to all guests. Humans worried constantly about having enough food. Did everyone get some? They asked. Take more, they insisted. I made extra, they promised. Running out of food at a celebration was considered a serious failure. The researcher discovered this at what humans called a potluck dinner. Each family brought one dish, she reported, but there was enough food for 5 times as many people. When I asked about this, the humans looked uncomfortable. One said, "Well, you never know who might show up." Another said, "Better too much than too little." They seemed genuinely distressed at the thought of someone going hungry at a celebration. The food is not about eating, it is about caring. The second element was gift-giving. This confused many species at first. Most galactic cultures exchanged gifts, but in specific contexts. Gifts were tribute to superiors, payments for obligations, or displays of wealth and status. The value mattered, the expense mattered, the impression mattered. Humans gave gifts differently. They gave gifts as expressions of affection. They gave gifts to show they were thinking about someone. They gave gifts to celebrate milestones, to cheer up sad friends, to mark special occasions, or for no reason at all. The value didn't matter to humans. Expensive gifts often meant less than cheap ones. What mattered was the thought, the effort, the personal connection. A human might spend hours making a simple card for a friend's birthday. Another human might search for weeks to find a specific book someone mentioned wanting. The time and attention mattered more than the money. The military commander who adopted this tradition revolutionized his clan's dynamics. Before, we gave gifts to display power, he explained to his team. The biggest warrior gave the most expensive gift. Status was clear, but it created resentment and competition. When we adopted the human method, something changed. My warriors started giving personal gifts, thoughtful gifts. A blade sharpened perfectly for a comrade's fighting style. A recording of a song that reminded someone of home. These gifts created bonds, strong bonds, stronger than any I saw with expensive displays. The third element was decoration. Humans decorated spaces for celebrations. They hung lights, arranged flowers, placed symbols, used specific colors. They transformed ordinary places into special places through decoration. The decorations served no practical purpose. They didn't provide shelter or food or protection. They existed only to create atmosphere, to signal that something special was happening, to make people feel happy when they looked around. The crystalline found this concept alien at first. Their species valued emptiness, simplicity, bare spaces for meditation. But when they tried incorporating lights and decorations into their renewal festival, something unexpected happened. The decorations focused attention. They marked time. They created shared visual memories that made the celebration more meaningful. "We light our crystals now," one explained. "Each crystal represents a hope for the new cycle. We place them together and they shine in patterns. It is beautiful. We never considered beauty as part of ceremony before. Humans taught us that beauty itself has value." The fourth element was music and dancing. Nearly every human celebration included music. Sometimes formal performances, sometimes background, sometimes loud dance music, sometimes quiet songs. Humans used music to create mood, to energize crowds, to calm emotions, to build unity. And they danced. Not formal ritual dances, though they had those too. They danced for fun. They danced badly and laughed about it. They danced in groups, in pairs, alone. Dancing wasn't a performance for humans. It was participation. This baffled many species initially. They had ritual dances, but only trained performers danced while others watched. The idea that everyone should dance, regardless of skill, seemed chaotic and embarrassing. But when species tried it, they discovered something powerful. Dancing together created connection. Moving to the same rhythm synchronized bodies and minds. Dancing badly together meant everyone was equal. No one was judging. Everyone was just having fun. "We incorporated what humans call a dance party into our annual gathering," a elder reported. "I expected chaos. Instead, I saw joy. Our young people danced with our old people. Our workers danced with our leaders. Everyone was equal on the dance floor. Barriers dissolved. It was the most unified our community has felt in decades." The fifth element was laughter. Humans laughed during celebrations. They told jokes, shared funny stories, played silly games, wore ridiculous costumes. They didn't take celebrations too seriously. Even solemn occasions had moments of levity. This was perhaps the most revolutionary element for many species. Celebrations were supposed to be serious. Religions demanded reverence. Governments required respect. Traditions expected formality. Humans respected and revered and kept traditions, but they also laughed. They found humor in unexpected places. They used laughter to ease tension, to include nervous guests, to acknowledge mistakes, to celebrate imperfection. The empire discovered that adding humor to their rigid ceremonies transformed their culture. For generations, they maintained strict protocols at all gatherings. Everyone knew their place. Everyone followed rules, but social tensions were high. Lower castes resented upper castes. Young people felt stifled. The culture was fracturing. When they adopted elements of human celebrations, including the permission to laugh and be playful, something shifted. "Humor equalizes," a sociologist explained. When the High Council tells jokes at the festival, they become people, not just authorities. When everyone laughs together, hierarchy softens. We maintain our structure, but now we have warmth within it. The sixth element was storytelling. At human celebrations, people told stories. They shared memories, recounted funny incidents, remembered loved ones, passed down family legends. Stories connected past to present, honored those absent, taught younger generations, and strengthened bonds. Every celebration became an opportunity for storytelling. Birthday parties meant stories about the birthday person. Weddings meant stories about the couple. Funerals meant stories about the deceased. Holiday gatherings meant stories about previous holidays, creating layers of shared memory. For species with strong oral traditions, this felt natural. But for species who had moved away from storytelling, rediscovering it through human-style celebrations brought unexpected benefits. Stories preserved culture in living memory. They created emotional connections across generations. They made abstract traditions personal and real. The seventh element was purpose. Human celebrations always had purpose, but the purpose was often simple and human-scaled. Celebrate that someone was born. Celebrate that another year passed. Celebrate that people love each other. Celebrate that the harvest came in. Celebrate that hard times ended. Celebrate that we're still here. Humans didn't need grand purposes to celebrate. They didn't wait for major achievements or rare occurrences. They celebrated the ordinary, the everyday, the simple fact of living and being together. This was the element that changed everything for many species. They had been waiting for big reasons to celebrate, waiting for perfect conditions, waiting for important enough occasions. Meanwhile, life passed by uncelebrated. Humans taught the galaxy that ordinary life was worth celebrating, that every day contained reasons for gratitude and joy. That celebration wasn't a reward for achieving something. It was a tool for surviving everything. Compiled all of this into a comprehensive report, but she knew the report would only capture part of the truth. The real truth was in the experience. The real truth was in how celebration made people feel. She had attended human celebrations herself during her research. She went to a birthday party for a 5-year-old human child she had never met. The child's parent, learning that was studying celebrations, immediately invited her. At that party, wore a paper crown. She ate cake with her manipulators. She sang a song in English about living long. She helped a small human child hit a paper animal full of candy with a stick. She felt ridiculous. She felt old and too serious and completely out of place. And then the birthday child ran up to her with frosting on her face and gave a drawing. "I made this for you," the child said. "It's you at my party. You're smiling. Thank you for coming." Looked at the crude drawing of a 4-eyed alien figure wearing a crown. In the drawing, she was smiling. She realized she was smiling in real life too. That was what her report couldn't capture. That feeling, that moment, that simple, pure joy of being included, of being welcomed, of mattering to someone even though you were a stranger. That was what humans were giving the galaxy. Not just celebrations, but permission to be happy, permission to be imperfect, permission to gather and eat and laugh and dance and make memories, even when life was hard, even when nothing was perfect, even when you didn't feel worthy of celebration. Humans celebrated anyway, and they invited everyone to join them. Part 3. Stood before the Galactic Cultural Council, ready to present her findings. The council chamber held representatives from 200 major species and observers from 1,000 more. Everyone wanted to hear about the human celebration phenomenon. She activated the holographic display and began. "Honored council members, my team has completed the most comprehensive study of human celebration culture ever conducted. Our findings confirm that 73% of new celebration traditions adopted across the galaxy in the past 50 years originated from, or were heavily influenced by human culture." Murmurs filled the chamber. Even though they expected this conclusion, hearing it confirmed was still shocking. "The question is not whether human influence exists," continued, "but why it spread so rapidly and what it means for galactic culture." She presented her research, walking the council through each of the 7 elements her team identified. She showed videos of celebrations from hundreds of worlds, demonstrating how each incorporated human elements while maintaining their own cultural identity. They showed their gratitude feasts. They showed their renewal festivals with light displays. They showed their winter sharing ceremonies. The hive showed birthday celebrations for individual drones, something that would have been unthinkable a generation ago. "But it is not just what humans do," said. "It is why they do it and how they make others feel when they do it. Humans celebrate to create community. They celebrate to maintain hope. They celebrate to acknowledge that life, despite its hardships, contains moments worth honoring." She paused, looking around the chamber. Humans celebrate because celebration itself has value, not as religious obligation, not as political tool, not as social requirement. They celebrate because it makes life better, and when other species experience this, they want it too. The first question came from the preservationist faction, a group worried about cultural contamination. Is this not cultural imperialism? Their representative asked. One species imposing its values on thousands of others. Had expected this. We examined that question extensively. The evidence suggests otherwise. Humans are not imposing their celebrations. They are sharing them. There is a difference. She pulled up data showing cultural exchange patterns. When humans join celebrations of other species, they participate respectfully. They learn the customs, they honor the traditions. They don't try to change what others do. But when humans host celebrations, they invite everyone. They explain their traditions. They help others participate. And if others want to adopt elements, humans are happy to help but never insist. The spread is voluntary, emphasized. Species adopt human celebration elements because those elements improve their lives. The empire reduced social unrest by 30% after incorporating inclusive celebration practices. The collective reports increased mental health markers across their population. They have seen stronger community bonds among their traditionally solitary people. Another question came from a military representative. Are there any negative effects, any dangers in this cultural shift? Nodded. We identified some concerns. Some species have adopted human celebration practices without understanding the underlying values. They throw parties but maintain rigid exclusion. They give gifts but make it about status competition. They decorate but turn it into wealth displays. These superficial adoptions don't produce the positive effects. The celebration elements work because they come from a deeper philosophy, she explained. Humans believe that every individual has worth. They believe that joy is a right, not a privilege. They believe that community is built through inclusion, not exclusion. When species adopt the celebrations without adopting these values, the results are hollow. The philosophical questions continued for hours. The council was thorough, as they should be when discussing something that affected galactic culture so profoundly. Finally, the human representative asked to speak. Ambassador stood, looking slightly amused by the entire proceeding. I appreciate the council's diligence in studying our celebrations, but I think we're overthinking this a little. Smiled. Humans celebrate a lot because life is hard. We're a young species. We've survived wars, diseases, disasters, near extinction. We learned early that if we waited for perfect reasons to celebrate, we'd never celebrate at all. So we celebrate the small stuff. We celebrate that we're still here. We celebrate that we have each other. We share our celebrations because that's what celebration is for, continued. It's meant to be shared. Joy multiplies when you share it. That's not imperialism. That's generosity. And honestly, added with a grin, we're just happy other species want to party with us. The galaxy was pretty formal and serious before. It's nice to see people loosening up. The chamber erupted in what could only be described as laughter. Different species made different sounds, but the meaning was universal. Had just done something very human. She had taken a serious discussion and made it light, made it personal, made it about connection rather than politics. Felt something shift in the chamber. The council had been approaching this as a problem to solve, a phenomenon to regulate. Reminded them it was simply people trying to be happy together. The council voted to conduct follow-up studies on the long-term cultural effects, but they also voted unanimously to establish what they called the Universal Celebration Initiative. The goal was to document and share celebration practices from all species, with humans serving as cultural ambassadors to help species adapt and adopt traditions that worked for them. Humans were appointed as ambassadors not because they demanded the role, but because every other species insisted. Who else knows parties like humans? One representative asked, and no one could argue. The formal session ended, but something unexpected happened next. Ambassador stood and made an announcement. Well, since we're all here and talking about celebrations, and since today happens to be the anniversary of first contact between Earth and I think we should celebrate. We brought food. The human delegation opened large containers. Smells filled the chamber. Humans had brought food from 20 different Earth cultures. They set up tables. They explained dishes. They encouraged people to try everything. We also brought music, added. Something called Earth's Greatest Party Hits started playing through the chamber's audio system. It was loud and cheerful and completely inappropriate for a formal government building. The council members looked at each other uncertainly. This violated about 50 protocols, but slowly, tentatively, they approached the food tables. The humans served everyone, explaining each dish with enthusiasm. This is pizza, it's Italian, you'll love it. These are samosas, they're Indian, careful, they're spicy. This is sushi, it's Japanese, try the salmon one first. Within 30 minutes, the Galactic Cultural Council was having a party. Representatives from species that had been enemies for centuries stood next to each other eating strange food and comparing favorites. Young staff members taught senior officials how to do something called the Macarena. An elder was attempting to eat a taco while a human demonstrated the proper technique. Watched it all, data pad in hand, automatically documenting everything. Then she caught herself. She was at a party taking notes. That was very her, but it was also very much missing the point. She put down her data pad and approached the food table. A young human helped her select items. Try the dumplings, he suggested, and definitely get some cake. There's always cake. Found herself standing next to the preservationist representative, the one who had questioned cultural imperialism. They both held plates of unfamiliar food. They both looked slightly overwhelmed. This is very strange, the preservationist said. Yes, agreed. They ate in silence for a moment. The dumpling was delicious. But good strange, the preservationist added quietly. Yes, said again, good strange. Over the following months, news of the Council's celebration spread through diplomatic channels. Other species wanted to know more about human celebrations. Invitations flooded Earth's diplomatic offices. Could humans help them plan a festival? Could humans teach them party games? Could humans explain this cake thing everyone mentioned? Humans accepted every invitation. They showed up with food, with music, with decorations, with enthusiasm. They helped to plan their first hive-wide birthday celebration. They taught the how to wrap gifts with paper and bows. They introduced to something called karaoke. But humans also learned. They attended ceremonies on worlds they'd never seen. They participated in traditions thousands of years old. They added new holidays to their own calendars, celebrating days that mattered to their new friends. Earth started observing Remembrance Day. Human children learned gratitude songs. Human restaurants started serving seasonal dishes. Cultural exchange became true exchange. Celebration became a language that everyone spoke. Continued her research, now focused on long-term effects. She tracked communities that adopted human-style celebrations and compared them to control groups. The data was remarkable. Lower rates of depression, stronger social bonds, better conflict resolution, higher reported life satisfaction. Celebration wasn't just fun, it was functional, it was necessary. Humans had understood this instinctively, and now they were teaching the galaxy. 3 years after her initial discovery, published her final report. The conclusion was simple. Human celebration culture has given the galaxy something it desperately needed but didn't know how to ask for. Permission to be joyful. Permission to be imperfect. Permission to gather and connect and find reasons to be happy, even when everything is not perfect. She ended the report with a personal observation, something unusual for a scientific document. In studying human celebrations, I attended 43 different events across 12 species on 8 worlds. I ate food that made my taste receptors confused. I danced badly to music I didn't understand. I wore silly hats and sang songs in languages I couldn't speak. I celebrated things that had nothing to do with me. And I was happier. That is not scientific. That is not data. That is simply truth. Humans celebrate not because everything is perfect, but because even imperfect moments are worth marking together. In this, they have reminded the galaxy what we had forgotten, that celebration is not a luxury or obligation, but a fundamental need of any being who wishes not just to survive, but to truly live. The report went viral across the galactic network, not because it was scientifically groundbreaking, but because it was true. Everyone who read it recognized themselves in it. Everyone had felt that same happiness at a celebration. Everyone wanted more of it. Ambassador read the report and sent a message. Thank you for understanding. Also, we're throwing a publication party for your report. You're the guest of honor. Bring whoever you want. There will be cake. Went to the party. She brought 17 colleagues from the archive. She wore a silly hat. She ate cake. She danced badly to Earth music. She celebrated the completion of her research by celebrating with the very people she had researched. It was perfect, not because everything went smoothly. The cake was slightly burnt. The music was too loud. Someone spilled juice on the floor. Dancing was terrible. It was perfect because everyone was there together, being happy together, celebrating together. That was the human gift. Not perfection, but connection. Not flawlessness, but joy. As looked around the room at humans and aliens dancing together, eating together, laughing together, she understood something profound. The galaxy had been searching for unity for thousands of years. They tried political unions, economic partnerships, military alliances. They tried shared languages, shared technologies, shared goals. But maybe unity wasn't found in those things. Maybe unity was found in shared joy, in celebrating together, in acknowledging that despite all their differences, every species wanted the same basic things: to be happy, to be together, to matter to someone, to have reasons to celebrate. Humans didn't give the galaxy new technology or military strength or economic power. They gave the galaxy something much more valuable. They gave them permission to party. And the galaxy accepted the invitation.